Morning, members. Ladies and gentlemen, can I please remind you to ensure that mobile phones and other devices are on silent, that banners are not permitted and members of the public are not allowed to address the meeting, to use the microphones when speaking, and that you may be filmed or recorded during this meeting. Thank you. Please be upstanding for the chairman.
Morning, everyone. Please remain standing while my chaplain says prayers.
Father, as we gather once more from across the county, we ask you to instruct us and to teach us in the way we should conduct our business and our words today. Counsel us with your loving eye upon us, and let our aims in this meeting be aligned with your direction. May our plans be orchestrated by you so that your will may be done. May your loving wisdom guide us today so that our actions in this meeting may be valuable to our aim, which is to build up and to edify one another. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. Enjoy your meeting.
Right, everyone, can we settle down, please? We'll make a start. First of all, can I point out that there are two amendments to the minutes, and I would ask you to approve the minutes with the amendment on page 21 to correct the typographical error in relation to the spelling of Councillor Foll's name. And on page 12, that members voted against the motion, not amendment as printed. So with those two changes, does everyone accept those as a true record of the meeting? All those in favour? That's clearly carried then, thank you. Apologies for absence. Councillor Barnfather, do you have any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chairman, I have an apology from Councillor Richard Jackson, illness medical.
Thank you. Councillor Henry?
Yes, Chairman, good morning. Apologies from Councillor John McGrath. He's ill. Also, apologies from Penny Garland. She's late medical appointment reasons. And from Pauline Allen, who is late and will be joining us later. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Deakin?
Thank you, Chairman. I have apologies from Councillor Steve Carr due to illness, and Councillor David Shaw will be joining us shortly.
Thank you. I move on then to agenda item 3, declarations of interest. If any councillor or officer has either a disclosable pecuniary interest or a private interest in any matter on the agenda, you should declare it now. Please raise your hand now if you have an interest to declare, and when called to speak, you should state whether it is a disclosable pecuniary interest or a private interest and give brief details. First of all, has any councillor got any interest to declare? No. Any officer? Any interest to declare? No. Thank you then. Move on to agenda item 4, which is Chairman's business. And the first item is the ITT Adept Award, and I call upon Councillor Neil Clark to introduce the award.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Chairman, and it really does give me great pleasure to introduce this award. Nottinghamshire County Council has been developing an independent travel training scheme for the last 11 or 12 years. The scheme helps to improve the life skills of many young people in Nottinghamshire with learning difficulties by providing the skills and confidence to use public transport to access education, training and employment opportunities. And at the award ceremony on the 27th of May, Nottinghamshire was awarded first place in the Shaping Places for People category.
Well done.
And I have to say, Mr. Chairman, this is largely down to, and I'm glad that she is here today, Jenny Mackler, the ITT manager, has hosted regional and national seminars to improve awareness of independent travel training and has been engaged by other local authorities to help roll out their programs and training plans. Some of these young people, Mr. Chairman, could hardly speak or communicate prior to receiving this training and this support. And that's given them the confidence to then to be able to actually communicate and to go out and travel and get jobs. So I think, Mr. Chairman, this really is quite a humbling experience, and it's what Nottinghamshire is all about helping those vulnerable people that need to try and be encouraged to get that confidence. So I have extra special pleasure in inviting Jenny Mackler to come down and join us for you to present the award. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
A rose between two thorns.
The wonders of modern technology. I'm pleased to inform you that the Council has also been shortlisted for a number of awards at this year's LGC Awards, which will be announced on the 20th of July. And the finalists are Adult Social Care and Public Health Early Innovation Project, nominated in the Innovation category. This partnership project uses technology to spot the early signs that an older person's health is deteriorating, helping to reduce hospital admissions. Not Alone website, nominated in the technology category. The new website, which was developed with input from young people, parents and carers and professionals, brings together local mental health advice and support for young people in one place. The Early Year Food Environment Childhood Obesity Trailblazer project, nominated in the public sector category. The project aims to provide the food environment in the early years, focusing on areas with childhood obesity prevalence. This includes the development of food clubs, which provide fresh food to low-income families, an increase in uptake of Healthy Start vouchers, improving food provision in nurseries, and training of early years staff. The 5G Connected Forest, nominated in the Future Places category. The £10 million project is bringing together cutting-edge digital technology in the heart of Sherwood Forest, boosting tourism and the environment. Jeren Clulo was nominated by a partner organisation in the Outstanding Individual Contribution category. Jeren has single-handedly secured several £1 million of funding via numerous bidding processes to extend the digital connectivity in Nottinghamshire. She has also brought together a consortium that was key in making a successful bid for the 5G Connected Forest project. I am pleased that the innovative and hard work of our colleagues has been recognised, and I would like to wish all of our finalists every success in the future. I think it deserves a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. I have a brief update on one or two things that I've been doing since we last met, and I've undertaken a couple of citizenship ceremonies which have started up again this year after COVID, and it's been very rewarding to see the people that are there obtaining their certificates and becoming British citizens from all over the world. It's been quite an illuminating experience, and to say that they've had to pay something like £1,200 to £1,500 to go through the process and go through a very hard questionnaire, which I had a look at, and I think I'd have been struggling to answer some of the questions. Certainly the sport ones I'd never have answered. I've attended a concert at Portland College by the Aspire, which was organised by Aspire with the students at Portland. I did a talk to Year 5 at Carhill School in Retford. I've attended an interfaith meeting at Southall Minster, a cheque presentation from Veolia, who presented me with a cheque for £1,000 for my charity, this year's legal service at St Mary's, a Commonwealth concert, which was to do with the start of celebrations for the Platinum Jubilee at Nottingham Playhouse, meetings at St Barnabas, Ashfield raised the flag for the Commonwealth, citizenship at Mansfield, as I already said, Scouts at Kirkby, and obviously the highlight was on the 21st when I actually was at the opening of the Gedling Access Road, which was welcomed by all present. I've had various meetings and catch-up meetings with the civic team and my charity, and that concludes my business. Lunch will be at approximately 12:30 today. Agenda item 5, constituency issues. This item gives members who have previously given notice by the deadline the opportunity to speak for up to 3 minutes on any particular matter relevant to their constituencies or any particular issues arising in their electoral division, which is relevant to the services provided by the County Council. This is an opportunity simply to air these issues in the council meeting. It will not give rise to a debate on the issues or a question and answer session. Members are reminded there is a maximum time limit of 15 minutes for this item on the agenda, and each member may only speak for the maximum of 3 minutes. Can I call upon Councillor Sybil Fielding, who has an issue about school provision in her division?
Thank you, Chairman. 2014, planning permission was given by Bassetlaw District Council for an additional 750 new homes on the Gateford estate. As part of the Section 106 agreement between the housing developer, Bassetlaw District Council and Nottinghamshire County Council, the housing developer agreed to pay over £2.5 million for the construction of a new school. In a report to Policy Committee on the 16th of September 2020, this council supported the report's recommendation and again reaffirmed its commitment to deliver a new school at Gateford. I quote directly from that report. It is anticipated that the construction will start in 2022 with a 52-week build. For clarity, this would mean the school will be completed no later than 2023. Under the other considerations section, the report stated again, I quote directly, consideration has been given to allowing school places required by this development to be delivered by other schools in the workshop planning area. The distances to other schools and the size of the roads that parents will be required to cross have caused this option to be dismissed. Chairman, this report is clear. The Council supports a new school in Worksop West by 2023. Today, hundreds of houses have been built. The land has not been acquired by the County Council and planning permission has not been applied for. And although some officers have been kind enough to meet with me and to see progress of the housing development, there has been no firm updates or expected progress for the school. It would be unfair today not to highlight the anxieties and stresses caused to families dispersed across Worksop, in direct conflict with the Council's own report. But this speech is not of a political nature. I simply want what is best for the families I represent and ask for collaborative working to ensure this school is built. I would respectfully request that the Chair of EDAM Committee confirms that it is still this Council's intention to provide this new school within the time frame specified. Chairman, I am disappointed that rather than contacting me directly, members are choosing in this chamber to grandstand and play politics with an issue that people outside this chamber are deeply concerned about. I came here not to sow division. In fact, I would appreciate it if the question that is due to be asked were withdrawn in a similar act of goodwill, so that we can make progress in this matter in a constructive manner. The clock is ticking. If we do not act soon, we run the risk of losing the investment via the Section
Councillor Fielding,
106.
your time is up. In fact, you're over time. I've been a bit lenient.
Thank you.
Councillor David Martin on road safety issues on Park Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Firstly, I'd like to present you the petition later, but this particular road is a problem that falls out of the radar scope of the County Council because of the procedural route of how accidents and events happen on this road. So one of the biggest complaints I receive as a county councillor is not just about the state of the roads, but about the safety of them. And this particular road, Park Lane, known locally as Bentinck Lane, connecting Selston to Kirkby, is one of the most dangerous stretches of road in my division and probably in Nottinghamshire actually. So I'll be requesting that the chairman or the cabinet member of the Environment Committee agrees to meet with me on site so he can see for himself the urgent need for action, including potentially reducing the speed limit, a plan to fix some of the potholes and properly improved drainage on the road, because the drainage is the problem. So as many of you will have rural roads in your divisions, the issue I've got is that Park Lane goes through a valley, the Erewash Valley, and of course with it being a rural road it has no curb edgings, and so in the deluge rain or biblical rain we get water coming across the road, the surface. Park Lane has a particular problem because it has the Bentinck Void situated halfway down it, where the contractors are importing in over 100 million tonnes of earth over a fixed period of years to fill the void. And of course they have a wheel wash on site, but with all due respect, it's not really working to the best it should be. So 2 years ago in February, an 18-year-old lad was coming back from college, which is situated near Sutton Parkway railway station, and he came back through to Selston at 4:30 in the afternoon, and as he was coming uphill towards Selston on the bend, he lost his vehicle on the mud as he put his toe down, accelerated, and the back end skewed across. His vehicle ended up upside down on the railway line, which is in the middle of
30
Park
seconds,
Lane.
Councillor Martin.
Sorry? Oh, sorry. So what I'm saying is, basically, it's a dangerous road, and we get water travelling across it. So we know it gets gritted, but in the 8 hours between the gritting lorries coming and people travelling down it in the morning, the water that's coming across the road is washing the grit away, causing black ice strips on it. And there are numerous occasions where vehicles have turned upside down. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor John Wilmot on Hucknall's state of Hucknall's roads.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak on the state of Hucknall's roads and highways. In the last few days, I've been spending hours walking the streets of our town in Hucknall, trying to come to terms with the state of our roads. Now, I know there's been a problem with the weather, But to be honest, the potholes now appearing almost on every street is very, very concerning. I am already having problems with residents complaining about cars speeding everywhere, and if the vehicles that are speeding hit any of these obstructions, then there could be serious consequences to this authority. Now, you might say to me, well, they are going to be repaired more professionally. But what about the problems now? On the busy Annesley Road in Hucknall, a pothole appeared 3 to 4 inch deep on a busy main road. It could have tipped a car or lorry over, causing a major incident. I will say that the team arrived a few hours later after I'd reported it. Yes, but nice. But lo and behold, I go by it this morning and it's sunk already. It's only been done a couple of days. That's incredible. But these things should not be happening. It's all to do with the poor workmanship previously done. Now, as I say, I've had to tramp the streets for hours finding out where all the problems were. And here are some of them. Green slime on pavements at the junction between Devitt Drive and Christine Close. A serious slipping hazard. Nobody takes any notice of that situation. Been there for years. I've reported it on a number of occasions. Outside 16 Rosalind Drive, potholes. Ethel Avenue, potholes. Bernard Avenue, inspection required. A number of potholes. At the junction with Bernard Avenue and Northern Cottages, potholes. At the junction with Church Lane and Waterloo Road, resurfacing required. 13 to 90 George Street, resurfacing required. Never seen a surface like it. It's in the programme to be done, but it needs doing urgently. Outside 165 Annesley Road on the bridge, large pothole that can't be seen by the vehicles because of the high thing of the bridge. The new list in my roads of improvements are endless. I'm not going to go through them because it would take an hour to talk about them. There's approximately 34 roads affected in my ward at the present time. A huge problem. Now, I could go on and on and tell you...
Councillor Wilmot.
Yeah, I could go on and tell you this things lead to a serious problem, big compensation claims against this authority could take place. And while I'm at it, the wall has not been repaired yet on the Baker Lane Brook. All the Hucknall councils are trying their best to keep our town clean and tidy, and we have to put up with a vandalised wall for many months. Many, many months. And here's where I'm out making sure that the roads are
Councillor Wilmot,
clean.
your time
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 6A, which is receipt of petitions. I've been notified of 12 petitions by the deadline. May I remind members that there is 1 minute time limit for the presentation of each petition, and there is a maximum time limit of 15 minutes for this item. If you have more than one petition, I suggest that you speak for 1 minute on each and bring them all up in one go rather than coming backwards and forwards. Can I call upon Councillor Nigel Turner as a request of review of road safety on Portland Road, Lime Avenue and Main Road in Nether Langwith?
Thank you, Chairman. The undersigned residents of...
Microphone.
It's on.
Is it?
Yeah. Ears. And I'm not that quiet. The undersigned residents of Nether Langwith request that Notts County Council undertake a review of road safety on Portland Road, Limes Avenue and Main Road, Nether Langwith, with a view to introducing effective measures to slow down traffic between Whaley Thorns Primary School and Juglass Public House, and to provide for the safe crossing of the main road. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I'll do the safety at Rampton Crossroads. A fatality occurred at Rampton Crossroads this year, which was speed related. The petition asks that Rampton Crossroads is investigated by the NCC highway safety officers with a view to installing appropriate life-saving safety improvements at the Rampton Crossroads. Some of the things that have been suggested are speed reduction, roundabout installation, or traffic light control. Children travelling to school at Rampton Primary do negotiate Rampton Crossroads twice a day. The community wished to prevent further deaths or injuries at these crossroads. I'll present the Eton petition next, Chairman. And this petition concerns speeding and safety in the village of Eton. Eton is a village located just south of Retford. The Eton community is concerned about safety on the village street, mainly because of speeding vehicles. The Bassett Law plan, found to be unsound by NCC officers, envisages a huge expansion of housing in the Ordsall suburb at Retford. Traffic use this route to travel through Eton. The road is dangerous now. The increased vehicles will make living and travelling through Eton much more hazardous, justifying this community concern. Thank you, Chairman.
Loudham to Thurgerton.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This is an online petition with nearly 400 signatures. This stretch of road between Loudham and Thurgerton is the only road that's not specialist road has not been relegated to 50 miles an hour, and it's especially outside the Egonlison Farm Shop, which is a very busy shopping area with cars turning in and out, and they're asking for a reduction outside there down to 40 if possible as a buffer zone into Loudham. So it's an online petition, Chairman, which has been sent in to members to the office, and so I present that to you for a reduction of speed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, Southfield Terrace in Newark is a complex for people of a certain age. I won't say that age because I actually fall within it. But it's a small road. It's a one-way street, and it's a very tempting road for idiots in cars to cut through going the wrong way. And as a result of that, a petition's been made because they've had a number of accidents there. And only this week, so since this petition was done, there's been another accident. And what I'm asking is the road's blocked off at one way. There's ample room for them to go in, get to their complex and everything. It just means it's not a cut-through road. It's used as a bit of a speeding circuit, and we could make it a lot safer by blocking the road off. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. It's 30 years this year since Eleanor White got off a bus and crossed the road. She didn't make it to the other side of the road, and she was killed. It's a death that has left her father, mother and sister to miss her for the rest of their lives. Many villagers, school friends in the village carry her memory. We need installation of this new pedestrian crossing, not to fix the issues of the past, but to secure it for its future. There's an additional development coming just around the corner at Ashdale, and there's going to be a significant amount of people that want to be using this crossing in the future. And so it's incredibly important that we get this in place to ensure those children that will be living on that estate can access their school at Carlton Willows and cross it with safety. And I've also had assurances from the residents themselves that, having not used it because of the road being so busy in the past, that they will be using it more in the future. And that's 462 people have signed that, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to present a petition to investigate a resident-only parking scheme on Henry Street and a section of Beardall Street in my division of Hucknall South An extensive rationale is in the documents I'm about to hand in on the petition. Mainly involves a couple of businesses parking on both sides of the street, and it's causing difficulties to residents getting in and out. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As alluded to earlier, I'd like to thank Cathy McLean and Ben Clark, the 18-year-old and 42-year-old people who have both had cars turned over upside down on this road due to mud and black ice at various times. So Cathy car turned over on the way to work at 7:30 in the morning. Ben's car turned over and ended up on the railway at 4:30 in the afternoon, which just shows you how diverse the accident range is. I've spoken to the highways officers and I will be following up my investigations in due course. This petition is for 671 people, but it's now near 700. Thank you.
Councillor Mike Pringle, who has three petitions, one for the permanent closure of a link road from the 614 to Station Road in Allerton, request for a pedestrian crossing on Retford Road outside St Joseph's Academy, and a pedestrian crossing on Tuxford Road near to the bus stop.
Apologies for being greedy this morning, as has already been pointed out. Chairman, the first petition was for the closure of a link road from the A614 going into Allerton itself, the village of Allerton. It's a ridiculous situation we find ourselves in, with residents constantly having cars damaged through the usage of people trying to nip through and trying to save what they think is minutes. In actual fact, there is no saving time, rather than going to the Allerton roundabout. The petition has been signed by 90 residents, which covers pretty much everybody that is a resident along that road. And I can assure you there's nobody in this room that will put up with what happens on here, even people get into fisticuffs on this situation. And we have done everything that we can to prevent vehicles coming down. We actually have 17 signs over a 60-metre area and telling people what they should and shouldn't be doing, and it's completely ignored. So please look at shutting this road off sooner or later. Chairman, our second petition is for a pedestrian crossing outside St Joseph's Academy. Previously, we've been blessed with a crossing patrol who sadly decided that she couldn't do it no longer. The reasons are a myriad, but abuse and the speed of vehicles that she faces every morning, putting her own life in danger, highlighted the reasons why she stopped. This is a critical situation. We have two schools and a new development from Newark and Sherwood that actually built Broadleaves for our care scenario. So this is crucial that we have this in place to connect what is a very busy road into the Allerton Booton itself. Thirdly, Chairman, I have a similar situation on Tuxford Road, which runs adjacent to Retford Road, which I've just spoken about, St Joseph's, but leads to two industrial estates whereby the vehicles that pass there pass at speed. We've tried everything that we can. We've put it's 30 for a reason signs up. We've done consultations. We've tried everything. We need a pedestrian crossing to connect both sides of the road, which predominantly is an area which houses elderly, but also links businesses back into Allerton. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a petition from the Keep Dovecote Lane Open campaign on behalf of more than 880 supporters, and I have had a look. Almost all of them actually do live in Beeston. It is an online petition. I'm going to read from their kind of submission. On what grounds do we object? First, the proposal is not being created based on reliable research and data. Second, there's been no consultation on the current scheme. That has actually been addressed. There is now public realm consultation going on, but it has come rather late in the day. Due to the lack of research and consultation, the proposal represents a poor use of public funds. A variety of concerns could be considered and resolved before spending the money, and some of them are actually set out in this petition. There are also more effective ways to be environmentally friendly or to increase cycling as a mode of transport. And finally, we're not objecting to the ethos of the active travel scheme. However, we do object to the proposal as it stands for Dovecot Lane. We'd support measures to calm and reduce traffic and make roads safer and more encouraging for active travel, but this scheme will fail to do this. So although there is also a public realm official consultation going on, I think it's important that every voice is heard. Okay, thank you.
Agenda item 7, Nottinghamshire County Council pay policy statement 22-23. I call upon Councillor Gordon Wheeler who will move the recommendation to the report.
Good morning, Chairman. Thank you. I'll just have your indulgence for a couple of minutes. Firstly, Kay Cutts is upstairs now, so warm welcome to Kay. And your good lady is keeping your BDR and you, Chairman, as usual, so warm welcome, of course, to Wendy as well. Chairman, it's a great pleasure in speaking on this. The recommendation is on page 34, and I'd like, please, to our council to support this. It's a paper which comes before the council every year because we're legally obliged to bring this paper to you for approval about this time every year. Pay is nationally recognised. It's a national agreement of pay for our employees. So we're not here to talk about what the pay structure is because it's a national agreement, as I've just said. But I must, please, with your indulgence, Chairman, praise our team behind the scenes. National agreement was only signed off in March, literally a few weeks ago. Yet our pay section moved heaven and earth to make certain our employees got their money at the end of March. That was extraordinary. So it's in a matter of, it was literally days, yet they moved so quickly to make certain our employees got the money in their pockets at the end of March. So huge thank you to everyone involved, Paul, and particularly sitting behind me, Jill, who really was instrumental in making this happen. The Council continues, Chairman, to maintain equal roof pay system and robust application implementation of job evaluation to protect against possible equal pay claims. Chairman, we recognise the importance of making work pay and have living wage foundation, living wage, and that's currently 9.90 per hour, which is from the 1st of December 21. To our lowest paid workers who are predominantly female and part-time. Approximately 1,425 employees benefit the payments at the time this was put together. Importantly, Chairman, the pay difference between the highest and lowest paid employees has narrowed over the period covered by this pay statement. The Council has had a single status agreement in place since the late 1990s, Chairman, and a revised set of terms and conditions covered by a collective agreement since the 1st of April 2019. There's a lot of reading matter within the papers here, Mr. Chairman. I'm sure members have had a read of what's in there. And of course, I'll be very happy to any issues that raised. I'll try and do my best to answer them. Otherwise, I'm very happy to move the recommendation, Mr. Chairman, and hope it gets complete support. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon Wheeler. Call upon Councillor Jonathan Wheeler to second the motion.
Thank you, Chairman. I second the motion and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Are there anyone wishing to speak or ask any questions on the matter? No? No indications. Can we move then to the vote?
Just a second.
Sorry. You reserve your right to speak, Jonathan. I forgot to ask you if you wanted to speak. Gordon, is there anything else you want to add? In which case, can we move to the vote? All those in favour? That's clearly carried. Thank you. I'm trying to get on. We'll move on then to agenda item number 8, which is the change to council governance arrangements. Before we start this item, I would like to inform members that we have Simon Goucher in the chamber with us today. Simon is the independent legal advisor who has supported the team as he developed the new proposals, and he's here today in case we have any legal questions about the proposed arrangements. I'd like to call upon Councillor Philip Owen to move the recommendations in the report.
Thank you, Chairman. 3,000 years ago, God gave Moses the 10 Commandments as a constitution for running the Hebrew nation. 3,000 years later, I bring before you a document of no less significance, a constitution to run Nottinghamshire, and I have not the slightest doubt that it will last for a further 3,000 years. I can hear you saying already, how come God managed to get his constitution on 2 tablets of stone, but you've managed 181 pages and counting? There's one simple answer. God didn't have to deal with lawyers. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Chairman, but I'm not going to go through all 181 pages this morning, because I'm working on the basis that, having picked up this literary masterpiece, you will not have been able to have put it down and have read it from cover to cover. And in so doing, Chairman, you, along with all other members, will have spotted the deliberate mistake I had inserted at page 187. And at page 187, I can hear people saying yes already. Yes, you had spotted it. Yes. If you can correct this now, please, I would be grateful. Paragraph 8 should read, call-ins must be supported by at least 7 members of the council. And if you could cross out the rest of that sentence, I should be grateful. It's a good job God didn't make similar mistakes. It had been a devil of a job to chisel those stones out again. I want to highlight, though, just 1 or 2 aspects of this new arrangement, this new governance arrangement. You will see set out on page 135 of the document the new cabinet structure that is proposed, and you can see that there are 10 cabinet members proposed, and the areas of cabinet, the individual cabinet members' responsibility roughly corresponds with the current committee responsibilities, and those responsibilities have been set out in the document later on. It was felt appropriate to do this in order to minimise any potential disruption as a result of the changeover. And since the responsibilities had been looked at the start of this administration, it was thought appropriate that the responsibilities should continue in that way. In addition to cabinet posts, there are still some committees remaining. These are largely statutory committees, and they are listed there, for example, Planning and Rights of Way Committee, Governance and Ethics, and so on. And they will continue as ordinary committees. But I think, as we all know, a leader and cabinet system requires effective monitoring and scrutiny. And to that end, we have set up, or which is proposed to set up, 4 scrutiny committees. There is going to be an overview committee which will monitor the work of the 3 select committees that sit below it, and those 3 select committees are going to cover the main areas of service delivery and expenditure. And you can see those set out in the booklet there in the chart. I believe that this is a robust system of scrutiny that we are proposing to you this morning. You will see from page 120 of the report that this is still work in progress. You can see that there has been a phased approach to producing this change in governance, and that by today, the end of today's meeting, we hopefully will have the key arrangements in place. So, for those of you that came along this morning thinking that this was the end, I'm sorry, it's not. It's not the end by any means. It's not even the beginning of the end, but it may be the end of the beginning. And I've heard that somewhere before. One critical feature of this, as you can see in phase 4, is implement and review. This process will continue to be reviewed over the next 12 months during the time that it is being rolled out, and there will be a significant review as to the success and potential difficulties that might have arisen during this 1 year of operation. There will be an ongoing review, but a full review at the end, and I think that is critically important. Before I finish, Chairman, I would like to thank a few people. First of all, I'd like to thank the working group, the cross-party working group, which met on a very, very regular basis and will continue to meet during the review and further implementation period. They did an enormous amount of work, often having to digest long documents at very short notice. But in particular, I want to thank officers of this council who have done an absolutely fantastic job in getting us to this point. I'd like to thank in particular Marge Toward, the monitoring officer, and her team, Heather Dickinson, the legal officer, and her team, Sarah Almond and her team, and also in dealing with the financial regulations, the Section 151 officer, Nigel Stevenson, and his team. They have done a really remarkable job pulling together detailed and complex matters and explaining them simply to members of the cross-party working group so that we could set the direction of travel which we see here in front of you today. Mr. Chairman, this is a constitution for devolution. All we need now is the devolution deal, which I'm sure will not be long in coming. In the highly unlikely event that there are questions to be posed, I will attempt to answer them. But do bear in mind, as I've pointed out on page 120, this is still work in process. With those few comments, Mr. Chairman, I commend the recommendations and move the recommendations and seek the support of Council for this new constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. I call upon Councillor Ben Bradley MP to second the motion.
Thank you, Chairman. I second the motion and reserve my right to speak.
Any indicators, Councillor Fold?
No, thank you, Chairman. So follow that. Hey, okay. Just to say, we are going to support this proposal, but we do have some concerns that remain. And that is that this is really being imposed on us by government, and it scarcely fits with what's called the localism agenda. But we do understand that if we're going to get the best deal for our county, and I know we all want that, we have to go down this route, starting with a change to our cabinet model with an elected mayor. So first, I want to thank you, Leader, thank you, Ben, for your willingness to keep our group involved and informed of progress and for listening to our concerns. That's been really appreciated. And many thanks too to officers in democratic services as well. I know, as what Councillor Owen just outlined, it's been a complex process with short deadlines, and we appreciate the time you've taken to work it through with us and explain the changes to us. And I know you've done that several times to several different groups, so appreciate your patience. I'm glad to hear too, and I know we've been reassured before, Councillor Owen saying that the working group will continue to meet and it will be under continual review. That's reassuring and that's good, so thank you for that. So literally it won't be set in stone. I'm sorry, but I thought I'd come up with that as well. Okay. But the clear message from government is if you want the so-called levelling up money, you've got to meet our very prescriptive criteria. So not only do we have got to change the cabinet model with a mayor, which a lot of us here are quite uncomfortable with, or at least we're yet to be reassured it's a good way forward. But the mayor will have a direct line to central government, but also we can only spend the money, of course, that we may or may not get, on government-prescribed criteria. That isn't devolution of power down to local councils by any definition I can find. It's quite the opposite. And we must not lose that close relationship that we've all talked about so much between our communities and our local councillors and local councillors who know their localities so well. Decisions need to be taken locally by the people who know their communities best. We need to keep that local voice. But as I've said before, this is the only way we can get some serious money to provide the services our residents need and deserve. Then we will stay around the table and continue to listen and work with you. We will be letting down our great county if we refuse to do that, and we're not going to do that. Back to the report. I do hope the consultation on this proposal will be wide-ranging and real. I tend to raise this at every opportunity. I'm still not convinced consultation is in our DNA here, but I'm happy to hear arguments to the contrary. I see on paragraph 20 of the report that the responses to the early consultation number 402 out of a county of over 800,000. So we can't really say we're interested in what people think if that kind of response isn't substantially improved on. Also, opposition members need to be given the resources we need to do our job of scrutiny properly. On paragraph 41, there is a proposal to recruit an experienced statutory scrutiny officer to ensure the effective operation of scrutiny. I'd argue that opposition groups, all of us, need more support to do just that as well. But the best bit of the report for me is in paragraph 62, and I quote, "Any system of council governance will continue to put the people of the council services at its heart." Hear, hear to that, and I think we all want to work towards that. So we're supporting this proposal for the reasons I've just given, but we'll be watching very closely and holding you to account with this new system of governance to make sure that we can continue to make our voice heard when we're representing our communities, both in and outside this chamber. Thank you.
Councillor Waters, you indicated you wish to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I first state that this document is one which shows apathy that Nottinghamshire's 820 residents feel towards these changes. They couldn't care less. Paragraph 19 to 22 reveals a poor response rate in what you could call half-baked, an attempt to communicate with residents over the biggest changes to how this council makes decisions for over a decade. Paragraph 20, as mentioned, the low number of people who chose to respond to the consultation resulted in just 402 responses, and as the report states, the number of responses received represents fewer than 0.07% of eligible people to vote within Nottinghamshire, and less than that in some areas of Nottinghamshire. Of these, 60% of residents disagreed with the proposals. Ask them a different question. Maybe, what do you think that 98% of our A roads and B roads are in good condition in Nottinghamshire? Or do you think that 97% of our C roads are in good condition and need no attention? You might get a higher response rate. You see, a question is one that impacts residents' lives and one that impacts them more than what you're actually asking. Of course, apathy doesn't just apply to members of the public. Before Christmas in Ashfield, we had an initial consultation on the draft local housing plan, which is looking at the enforced government housing targets. A freedom of information was submitted after the first consultation. What this told us was every Hucknall Ashfield independent councillor objected to the enforced targets, but only one of our Ashfield or Hucknall 5 Conservative and Labour councillors bothered to object. Just one. Now that is disappointing. The biggest issue facing our town, and yet 4 Conservative and Labour councillors couldn't be bothered.
I'm speaking. Councillor Waters, can you keep to the subject in question, which is about the change in governance arrangements, not about how people have voted or
Chairman, I'm putting apathy in context.
But you only have 5 minutes, and
I will take my 5 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. So the low figures contained within this report shouldn't come as a surprise, Mr. Chairman. You can read about this in the Nottingham Post this week, but engagement levels can be poor, even amongst elected councillors. Since May, I have relished taking part in the committee system here in Nottinghamshire, being a newly elected councillor. Residents voted in large numbers in the Ashfield Independents in places like Hucknall for them to hold the Conservatives to account, and that's what we have done. I have been a member of the Nottingham Pension Committee, which will stay under these proposals, and the Finance Committee, which will not. I have had the opportunity to raise issues such as completely immoral investments in companies linked to the extraction of fossil fuels, weapons, tobacco, recreational drugs, child trafficking, and much more on that pension committee. Members of the pension committee will know that I've been extremely vocal, and I'm pleased to announce, Mr. Chairman, that I will continue to do so under the new arrangements. On Finance Committee, I have worked well with Councillor Tom Hollis as members of the Independent Alliance. We were the first to raise concerns about the 9.7 million overspend on the Gedling Access Road, concerns about the closure of Minister View and the impact of national insurance rises on this authority. Millions are being sent back to the government on the back of broken manifesto commitments
you have less than a minute left.
from Boris Johnson, and our concerns about whether the new 15.7 million new office block at Top Wigay Farm near Hucknall is sensible in light of the hybrid working strategy. We will continue to watch this administration like a hawk. I do want to, I'm going to skip ahead because I've only got a minute left. 30 seconds, I will take that. Of course, members of the Independent Alliance will adapt. We have to, but let me be very clear today. We will continue to use every tool available to us to effectively scrutinise and hold this administration to account. We have our successes, like how we forced the council to undertake the highways review. Our pressure will finally lead to the pension committee to disinvest from companies involved in fossil fuels. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Pringle.
Thank you, Chairman. It's quite obvious that scrutiny in the future will be paramount to all parties, and openness and transparency and working together will also be part and parcel of that scrutiny. I'd like to start by thanking the legal teams, in particular from the Monitoring Officer Marge, Sarah and Heather, and the Finance Officer Nigel, for the information and the answers that they gave to me. I'm somebody that's never worked in a cabinet system. I've only ever worked under a committee system, so to have the honour of sitting and trying to understand the new developments that were being made, I can assure you I asked some questions that probably raised an eye, but was never denied an answer, and for that I'm really grateful. I put that down primarily to the way, and this is probably something that in my 10 years I've never said before, but I put that down to the way that the committee was actually chaired by Councillor Owen. Differences we may well have, but when it comes to this committee, there was no restriction on any question that was brought forward, any question that needed to be answered, and there was no stupid questions that were laid on the table. In fact, far from it. The communication between Councillor Owen and myself and other members, Councillor Barnfather included, was clear that the doors were always open to find out. So I can appreciate the scrutiny side, primarily because I relied on members on this side to guide me into their experiences of the cabinet system that they've had in the past. And the scrutiny has always been the one thing that has been questioned as to how do we scrutinise, how can we be recognised. That is something that I think we will debate constantly, and as Councillor Owen said, the working group are prepared to continue to work with that. So that's a positive in many ways. The failing will be if we don't get the scrutiny back, which we haven't had at present. We've had all the answers that we've asked, we've had them back. I'm sure there's different ways that we could do this. I think the 6 constitutions that Heather worked to have probably been the ones that have been adapted to best suit the way that, Ben, you want this to operate for government. And I understand that. But I'm not fearful that the door isn't going to be open at this minute for me to challenge and ask any questions from anybody and get the answers that would expect to come back. So thank everybody. There will be questions that will be raised, certainly from the scrutiny side. But I applaud where we are at the minute and the detail and the effort that officers put into getting us here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pringle. I have no other indicated speakers. Councillor Hollis.
Thank you, Chairman. And if I'm honest, I struggled with the opening gambit from Councillor Owen with regards to the 10 Commandments, etc. I mean, I didn't know really what he was trying to achieve, other than probably offend every Christian in the room by blaspheming. However, what I did fail, I saw the irony in it looking through that, was, to use the analogy, it was almost like pretending that he'd not done this before. I mean, only in the 2012 Conservative Manifesto, the Conservatives said they promised to return to the committee system because that system of cabinet, in their words, strangles democracy. They said the cabinet system put power in too few hands. Now, the boot's on the other foot. And it's like a road to Damascus style conversation, to carry on the same analogy. I don't understand. And I think this is not a danger for Labour members or Independent Alliance members. We're going to scrutinise whatever. Yes, you might think you're taking away a few of our opportunities to do so, and you might think a smoke-filled room's better to make a decision than the public. And then you might... It's the Conservative backbenchers what I struggle. You don't want them to hear what decisions you're making. Because when we're sat in the committees, and I sit on the Highways and Environment Committee, Finance Committee, I've sat on pensions, etc., we all talk. And I'd like to think, actually, we're all friends. And Councillor Clark and I have certainly resolved some personal issues recently. And actually, you have an honest debate. He's never going to be a cabinet member with those kind of compliments coming from this side. However, it's a nice style conversation where we all actually sit, because we have fewer opportunities to sit around the table together now. We don't do as many events as we once did. And the committee style is a good way of actually us talking. And we thrash out issues. And I'd like to think, even though we don't have the numbers, we shape your way of thinking. Having a cabinet style will take away that. And yes, you might turn and say, you do the same at Ashfield. Ashfield Council turns over £15 million a year. We're talking a considerably bigger operation here that requires a considerably level of scrutiny. And well, look, I'm not going to get into the hypocrisy of the money. If you want to spend money chucking up buildings, we'll spend money on building leisure centres and actually doing stuff. It's all well and good having money in the bank, but we'll do stuff. The figure of 100 million in debt is completely inaccurate, and you know that to be true as well. So I'm not going to entertain that. But actually having some ambition to do things. But the point Councillor Waters made is valid. I don't understand why you're doing this. There's better things to be focusing the council resources on than changing how we do things. If Mr. Bradley wants to focus more power in his hands, because let's not forget, this is all about him. So we're literally going to centralise all the power in one person's hands, because being an MP and being leader of the council is not good enough. He wants to be a combined mayor as well. And of course, he doesn't like this committee system because Councillor Clark's got his own mind, Councillor Girl, and of course Councillor Cotty would have made a far better leader in my eyes. But he's got his own mind. He's got his own mind. However, centralising the power, he loves it. He loves it. But the point being is we will keep our eyes on what you're doing regardless. And you can count on that, because the people of Ashfield, the people of Broxtowe, the people of Newark, the people of Rushcliffe and others deserve that level of scrutiny. And you can count on it coming from us. So don't think that's going to stop. But my only word of caution to end on would be Conservative backbenchers, don't be hoodwinked by this. Because only in 2012, Councillor Owen stood on a platform that said the cabinet system was wrong. And now he's changed his mind, conveniently. So watch this space.
30 seconds, Councillor Hollis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Wilmot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While I accept that changing the governance arrangements of this council is important to this administration, it is not as important as making the right decisions on behalf of the residents of the 7 districts of Nottinghamshire. Our priority should be to provide top-class services that they want and understand. That is why strong opposition is essential to the scrutiny panels. Every member of this council should be able to put their point of view over to the Cabinet. Since being elected in May 2021, I really enjoyed the scrutinising the administration via the committee system. Indeed, I was proud to have moved that the Transport and Environmental Committee do a feasibility into giving ex-armed forces personnel a free off-peak bus pass. Can you really say that proper scrutiny will take place if the Conservatives are in all the main positions on the Cabinet and scrutiny? I just want you to think about that. We need to have a scrutiny process that is fit for purpose and does exactly what it says on the tin. It is essential that before decisions are made by the Cabinet, they are thoroughly scrutinised and debated by the scrutiny panels before any decision is made, and you can only do that by having strong opposition numbers on the panels. Looking at the consultation process, something has seriously gone wrong. 402 responses out of 825,000 residents. That's pathetic. It is pathetic. You're certainly not on their wavelength, and it was noticeable. And of these that did reply, almost 60% were against the proposals. People aren't interested in changing the system to whatever suits its ruling group. All they're interested in, the council does the basics right. You say that the executive system allows swifter and more decisive decision making. I hope that it does. We need to make sure all decisions are scrutinised both before and after the decisions are made. And I hope if scrutiny comes up with a good suggestion for a policy, you will give it the chance to succeed. I'm a little bit concerned about extra officers to be recruited to the democratic services, as many of the committees will no longer be sitting, so admin on these committees will no longer be required. We should have enough officers, really, to complete the tasks required. And I'm sure one of the democratic team, with all the expertise that they've got, would love to train to take over the scrutiny role. I do hope that at a future meeting, a mayor will not be introduced. Everyone I talk to says it is wrong to have one person dominating the scene. It is against all democracy, especially for a combined authority of 2.2 million people, that being Derby City, Derbyshire, Nottingham City and Nottinghamshire. Finally, I hope this change of governance will bring more opportunities to have closer ties with the district and borough councils and all the democracy run community groups. I hopefully help community groups in our area and give them an opportunity also to discuss all the options that you put forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for listening to me.
Councillor Henshaw.
Thank you, Chair. Try and bring a little bit of resemblance of normality into the discussions. I mean, I've worked under both the cabinet system and the committee system, and to be fair, I've always preferred the cabinet system since its inception in around the year 2000, when Mansfield actually moved over to it. Slightly different, obviously, because we have an elected mayor, executive mayor, which I've never been in favour of, because some of the points in relation to how a mayor runs things, I agree with. But a lot of these issues we look at, and things change, things move. Things changed since 2000, and sometimes local government organisations cyclical, and it goes up and then it goes down. What's in vogue now might not be in vogue in 3,000 years' time when they look at the Constitution again. So at the end of the day, I think the devil is in the detail, and I'm glad that Councillor Owen has said that the committee will still meet and look and possibly make further recommendations to the Constitution, because as I see it, a Constitution should be a living, breathing document, and it shouldn't be set in tablets of stone. It should be something that reacts to changes in society and reacts to changes in local government. So we'll see how this progresses, and we'll see where things end up. There's just a few points in relation to the actual detail in the report. I mean, and I sat up, and I must admit, I ended up falling asleep when I got a quarter of the way through the thing. But over the last few nights, I've looked at it. But there are a few points that I'd like to sort of ask questions on. One is some constitutions, and particularly the one I know more about in Mansfield, there is an opportunity at full council meetings and an opportunity in cabinet meeting where if a member of public has a question to the leader or to the cabinet leader, cabinet member for that particular area, there is an opportunity for the member of public to write the question down. It's appropriately looked at, and if it's okay, then that member of the public is allowed to ask the question. And I'm not sure whether or not that was looked at in your deliberations, but I think that it should be something that people should be able to do. There is quite a bit of mention in the report on what the members of the public can expect, i.e. they can come to meetings, they can have papers if it's relevant. But I think it's good for democracy, for people out in the community to be able to come and ask direct questions to the leader and the cabinet members who are making very important decisions on their behalf. So I don't know whether you can answer that, Councillor Owen or Ben. I would like to see that included at some point in the future. If you've dismissed it out of hand, then you'll tell me why. There are a couple of minor things in relation to the Constitution that I just want to bring up, but obviously they're there possibly to be looked at again. In relation to education representatives and cooperatives on the Education Committee, you mentioned, bearing in mind we've discussed various faith issues this morning, but there are some of us that don't have any faith, and I know there's a set criteria that you need to follow, but I would suggest that you look in that and try and get a representative from other faith groups and from people that have no faith, from humanists and people like that. That was something I think for the interests of diversity is something we should look at. And the other very small point, which is on page, it's Rules of Debate 65. Now it says there, councillors will stand when speaking and must address the chair, or chairman as it's written in here. I prefer the other word, but there we go. I think that needs changing because
there may be a disabled or councillor that has a disability who cannot stand. So could that be changed? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We all come here for one reason, which is to represent our constituents on issues that matter to them. Let me put it another way. I'm less interested in the way in which we make decisions. I'm much more interested in the decisions that are taken in this chamber. And for that reason, I don't want to enter into the debate about the merits of the committee system or the cabinet system, because for me, it's neither here nor there. It's the decisions that we take in here and how we hold them to account that really matters. Let me just start by associating myself with what Councillor Owen said in his Sermon on the Mount, I think it was, Philip, at the start, in relation to the report. Only you could bring such a dry report to life, Philip. But to say thank you to Philip and his working group for the work that they've done, Councillor Owen, apologies, and to all the officers. Self-evidently, from reading this report, whatever your view is about the individual decision-making, this has been a mammoth task to change the governance of the council. And I think Philip's right when he thanks the monitoring officer, Anthony, and the rest of his team, but also the officers who have brought together financial delegations. There are just two issues that I wanted to highlight, because if we are going to have a cabinet system, which you have every right to make decisions under, you also need to be clear that you have a responsibility to be held to account on those decisions. And it's our job to make sure that we do hold you to account when you're taking them. I think there are just two things that really matter here that aren't touched on, understandably, in the report here today, because, as Philip says, there's more work to be done. Clearly, decisions are going to be taken rapidly, day in, day out, by cabinet members. I think it is absolutely critical that we rapidly find a system whereby all elected members can be informed about decisions that are being taken. It should not be incumbent on an elected member to go and have to find a written record, either online or physically, about the individual decisions that are being taken by cabinet members that self-evidently will affect every single division and therefore the residents that we serve. It's an example, and I've shared it with the monitoring officer in Gedling. There'll be other examples that maybe are better than Gedling's around the county, where we take cabinet decisions in Gedling. There's then an email that is automatically pinged out to elected members. It's then incumbent on them to go and read the report, to see the report, whether they've got an issue they want to raise, and to challenge cabinet members. But I do think we need to find, and I appeal to the administration, to work with everybody in this chamber to find a system so that people can be aware of the decisions that are being made. And the second point I would just put a marker down about here and implore the administration to work with people in this chamber on is to reflect on the arrangements here in full council. Because if we're going to have a cabinet system, yes, of course, scrutiny is a place that needs to contribute to policy development. Yes, of course, scrutiny is a place that needs to ask questions about decisions. But let's not hide from the fact that we're a democratic political institution, and there will be decisions in here where, quite rightly and appropriately, we will have disagreements and healthy debate in this chamber. And I think we need to find a way in our arrangements in full council to reflect the new system going forward. Should we have an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions as well as present petitions? I don't have a strong view on it, but I think we need to answer that question. Should we have a greater amount of time for questions to be asked specifically of cabinet members around some of the decisions that are being taken, or maybe some more time for discussion and debate on key decisions that are taken? These are all things that people will have different views on. I have a view on, but we rapidly need to come to a conclusion about them as a council if we are going to take decisions going forward, notwithstanding the minute it's a Conservative administration. If we're going to take decisions in this council chamber that are led by being in the interest of the people that we serve, transparent, accessible in terms of the information for all elected members, whatever your position is in the chamber, and also that they are done with honesty and integrity. Because I think we could all stand here, whatever political colour we're from, and point to different systems around the country where cabinet members have taken decision and perhaps they haven't been taken with the most decency or honesty and integrity, and we know the problems that then arise as a result of them. So I don't want to have a political tete-a-tete in here about this. I'm just saying we've got to try and make this system work in the interest of transparency, integrity, and in the interest of the people that we serve and ultimately send us to this chamber. It's a privilege to serve constituents here, and we need to make sure the decisions are decent decisions that we take and that everybody can fulfil their role in this chamber as their elected member. But I thank all the officers, and I hope that the system goes well. good luck to you in making the decisions, and you've got a commitment from us. We will absolutely keep your feet to the fire in terms of the decisions you make, because that's our job as as an opposition. We hope to be over there in the future, but in the ensuing time, we will hold you to account in the way that the public would expect us to.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor John O'Lee.
Chairman, thank you very much. I've stood to answer the question from Councillor Hollis. As a backbencher, I don't think I could get any further to the backbench without standing in the car park. I've only been a county councillor for 10 months, and as a backbencher, we have been fully involved in decision making at this council. We were the ones that put Ben in charge. We were the ones that came to this council and decided that we wanted a leadership change. We wanted a leader that would represent this council, and we put Ben in charge. Every morning that I come into this council, the leadership here are always welcoming to have conversations with us about what is going on. I've never been more involved in decisions being a backbencher than I have at this council, and I welcome the changes. I think more scrutiny is what we all want, and I think that will happen here. And I'd like to thank the leadership here of making sure the backbenchers have been fully involved with this decision making. There's not many leaders that I would know at 10 o'clock at night, after they've had a full day's worth of work, would be on WhatsApp messaging me to making sure all the information that we've asked for is given to us. So a big congratulations to Ben. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Martin.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I've been a councillor now for a county councillor for 7 years now, and I've always enjoyed the committee system. It's always been very robust, very thorough, and it's worked under both administrations. I can see quite clearly why the change in government is bringing this change about. And of course, we talked about combined authorities a few years ago, and that debate was held. And it'll be interesting for me to see what the residents of Cromford and Ripley and Alfreton think of the residents of Normanton on the Wolds. You know, that'll be interesting, a very diverse mix. But what I do really, my biggest aspiration, beyond all of the changes of committee and cabinet, because I've been a cabinet member at Ashfield for 2 years, in charge of the finance, revenues and benefits, and I can tell you we're not 100 million in debt. It's a mortgage. So that aside, right? That aside, it brings in 2.4 million a year, Philip. You might laugh, right? But I welcome, what I actually welcomed was the other day the opportunity to sit at policy and listen to Adrian talking about the benefits that this change could hopefully bring to our residents. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to bring the benefits, whatever brings money into Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire, whatever brings money into this council, because let's face it, for the last 10 years, we have been by far the worst funded by whichever colour government was in power. So per capita, we received the least amount of money for infrastructure and for everything. And if this change, whether it be cabinet, and yes, we will scrutinise, obviously, that's our job as opposition, but I welcome the revenue that it will bring into these two counties, and hopefully that will benefit all of our residents. And it will be the first time that I've been in this county council where that kind of money and that kind of structure and that kind of pledges from government will be made, and that's why I'm here. So we will be supporting that motion, because that's what I want, the benefit of all. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Neil Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just thought I would just say a few words about scrutiny, but it's a shame that Councillor Hollis has left the chamber. But you know, there's sort of a little bit of a loving that we seem to be having between he and I. I'll just let you know, Mr. Chairman, but don't tell Councillor Bradley, for goodness sake. But at the last committee meeting, Councillor Hollis actually said that he would support me to be cabinet member in this new administration. So I'm not quite sure which way to turn now, but just don't tell Councillor Bradley, for goodness sake. In terms, and there have been various comments about scrutiny, and I have got a lot of experience in dealing with other councils. I have worked both in the cabinet system and in the committee system in other councils. Also, as an LGA peer, I have done a lot of peer reviews of other councils, and they have talked about scrutiny. And what's important, and I think, and I fear that a lot of people might forget, but scrutiny does actually work best when it is actually a critical friend and challenging, but not confrontational. And the words have been used about opposition and opposing. Well, I really hope that these select committees are critical friends, because they are meant as policy development and challenge and as a critical friend. And picking up Councillor Payne's point, it's because we all want and need to work together for the good of the people of Nottinghamshire. And nobody has a monopoly on good ideas. Anybody can come to a select committee or anywhere else with a good idea. Exclude Councillor Begurling from those good ideas. So long as it is as a critical friend, then it will work. The democratics mention was made of the staff. Well, I'm quite confident there are going to be internal appointments, Mr. Chairman. So it doesn't mean that they're all coming in from outside. But changing to the cabinet system, as has been mentioned, will help us, and it's all about opportunities. And it's the opportunities that Councillor Bradley has been working on. And it's the opportunities that we can do better for the good of the people of Nottinghamshire by bringing in that extra investment that would not happen if we didn't change to the cabinet system. So I do agree with a lot of what Councillor Payne has said, that it is for the good of the people of Nottinghamshire. And I will finish with an invitation to Councillor Payne, Mr. Chairman, because you are very welcome to come over to this side and join us as soon as you like.
Hang on, we need a debate about that, don't we?
Well, maybe in time for the annual council. So we look forward to inviting you over to this side. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Purdue-Horam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it was very early on in my elected career, in 2004, I think, that I went into a cabinet system in another place. And my experience, I've never really enjoyed it. And I was jealous of Councillor Adair and his colleagues in 2009, who changed the county council over to a committee system. And it seemed to work well, as I recall my colleagues talking about it. And I was envious of Councillor Roger Blaney, the leader of Newark and Sherwood at the time, switching over to a committee system over there. And we kind of struggled on elsewhere with a cabinet system. So I've never really bought into it. However, and I've struggled, I would have, to be honest, I would have voted against it, even up to last week. However, I'm encouraged by the contributions that have been made by councillors across the chamber over, years actually, not just the last few months, and particularly, of course, my new friends who have been holding the administration to account. But if I was to pick out a particular instance which absolutely persuaded me that we have the quality of councillors in this chamber to scrutinise properly and effectively I was substituting on Tuesday, I think it was, Wednesday, at the health scrutiny group. And it's the wrong word to use, pleasure. It was gripping to listen to Councillor Michelle Welsh, missing at the moment, Councillor Michelle Welsh, in what was a controlled, raw, personal experience, as well as giving her councillor perspective in holding a major service institution to account, a well-known hospital trust, and ably supported by Councillor Mrs. Sue Saddington, who really nailed it down to the specific items that we were getting to. And we had some uncomfortable shifting in seats, if I recall. And I thought, that is scrutiny. And it was started off with a very polite couple of exocets from Councillor Cubley, if I recall, straight in there with pertinent questions. And it, if anything, that has probably convinced me, along with other contributions in other debates, and apologies to those of you who've really got into a subject elsewhere which I've not seen in your respective committees. I'm now confident that we will be able to hold the executive to account effectively and to scrutinise effectively. And my conclusion actually is we will probably have to revisit the scrutiny arrangements perhaps elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Prudy-Horan. Do we have any other speakers? I've got Councillor Doddy.
Yes, thanks very much indeed. It is a remarkable document in itself, and it does take a lot of reading, and one is always drawn to what you see as change, what you see as the unknown, what you see as the things that are intangible because you don't know how they're going to work out. And of course that creates an element of fear. What I would like to say is it's as much about what hasn't changed as what has changed. And it's just been pointed out by Councillor Purdy-Horan that this council will continue through Councillor Saddington to hold the service providers to account over Nottinghamshire itself. And perhaps from my point of view, the biggest thing that has had no change whatsoever is the delivery of health and well-being to the people of Nottinghamshire. We heard about the interests of the 820,000 residents and the importance this year of all years of a strategy which we brought before the Health and Wellbeing Board last Wednesday and through a workshop to deliver an improvement in the life expectancy, healthy life expectancy of the people of Nottingham and to reduce, most importantly of all, health inequalities. Now, health and well-being remains at the forefront of everything we do. If we cannot improve the health and well-being of the people, then that is where we fall down most of all. Health and Wellbeing Board will continue to provide joint strategic needs assessments, looking at the needs of the population and deliver them through the new change which we are signed up to through the government white paper of the integrated care service. We will be wedded over the next number of years to the integrated care service, politically represented by an elected representative on the Integrated Care Partnership, working to our officers on the Integrated Care Board, working to all the districts that you asked about, through place-based partnerships, right down to the very resident in the GP surgery in primary care networks. I can reassure you that despite all the change that's occurred, despite all the unknowns, despite all the worries with regards to things that are going forward, there will be no change in our approach to delivering the best healthcare for the people of Nottinghamshire through the Health and Wellbeing Board. And I think we need to concentrate sometimes on the things that remain constant, the things that we're going to continue to deliver. And that's also true for Councillor Saddington health scrutiny. Other than that, I'd just like to say it's a phenomenal document and compliment all those involved in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Doddy. Councillor Bradley, you reserve your right to speak. Sorry, I didn't see you. Councillor Barnfather.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm easily missed. As a member of the Working Party, I'd just like to thank those members across the chamber, and I was making notes, there's probably too many of you to mention, who have complimented the Working Party and complimented officers. And I suppose I'd like to just start by echoing that. The work of officers over the last few months has been absolutely incredible. The hours that they've worked, some of them, while they've actually been suffering from the dreaded COVID, have still been working from home to make sure that we had these documents before us today. So the support of officers, the hard work of officers, the initiative of officers, the consultation that they've done with other authorities, so that we've had a peer base to be able to work to produce these recommendations today. Absolutely incredible. And I would like to thank fellow members on that panel, fellow members from across the opposition, whether it be the non-aligned single member, whether it be the Labour group and the Ashfield Independent, or the Independent Alliance, my apologies. The reality of it is that you both put your deputy leaders in, and I think that showed the significance and the importance that you as groups attributed to the work that we were doing. And I thank you for that. I thank you for your constructive contributions throughout. I don't think we've ever had a crossword in any of the, I think, 8 meetings that we have actually held to come up with these proposals. We've listened to you right up to the death, which is why we had that slight amendment in the papers today, because that was an amendment that we put in about 6 hours before we went to print. And that was on the basis of points raised by the leader of the Independent Alliance in particular. So I'd like to thank all of you. I've listened, to, as I say, across the chamber, and I know I've only got a few minutes. I suppose just a point from with Councillor Fole. This today, let's be very clear, what we're voting for are governance arrangements for Nottinghamshire County Council. We're not voting today as to whether or not we have a combined authority or a devolution deal or a mayor in the future. So we need to just focus on the paper that is before us. I have to mention Councillor Waters, because I've never heard such a wide-ranging speech. In fact, I checked my papers just to make sure I was in the right meeting with the right papers in front of me, because we managed to talk about the Highways Review Panel, the Ashfield District Council Local Plan, housing allocations, government targets, fossil fuels, child trafficking, armaments, drugs, national insurance rises, Minster View closure. I'm not sure we actually ever talked about the paper that we're actually here to vote on today, but it was interesting nevertheless, Councillor Waters. Thank you, Councillor Pringle. Your thanks, your support throughout this process has been much appreciated by the administration. The fact that we've been able to produce a document, which I'm hoping that most of us can agree on today, is testament, I think, to everybody's positive contribution. Councillor Wilmot, you talked about how can we have proper scrutiny with Conservatives in charge. I suppose if I was an Ashfield District Council member, not of the ruling party, I might ask a similar question, because one thing that this paper is doing is actually saying that the vice chairs across scrutiny, whether it be the Overview and Scrutiny Committee or the 3 select committees, will be members of the opposition. But we actually looked very closely at the Ashfield District Council model of scrutiny. My understanding is that your chairs of scrutiny committees or committee is the ruling group. Your vice chair is equally the ruling group. So it seems to work. It seems to work. So thank you, Jim. It seems to work at Ashfield, where the ruling group are in charge. We're here actually making formal positions for the opposition groups. Councillor Payne, talking about holding us to account, absolutely agree with you, Councillor Payne. That is the opposition's role. A good opposition will always hold the administration to account. You know, that's what an opposition is there for. And I take on board your notification of key decisions, the system that we operate with the council. I'm sure that's something that I can discuss with Councillor Owen, and that hopefully we can look at. Finally, I'd just like to thank Councillor Lee for his comments. As a Conservative backbencher, it's reassuring that he, representing that group, feels that Conservative backbenchers are fully involved, fully briefed, fully part of the decision-making process within the group and within this administration. And long may it continue. Thank you, Councillor Lee.
Can I stand up? Doesn't call me. Can I stand up, Chairman? Yes, sorry. Thank you. Well, first of all, I would just like to thank people for their comments regarding the Health Scrutiny Committee. Like Councillor Roddy, I can confirm that the Health Scrutiny Committee will continue just as it has. We will have cross-party representation, and at the end of the day, we're all there for one reason, and that is to ensure the safety of our residents when they're attending hospitals and other places of medical care. And we will represent all our residents, because everybody that we represent will at one time be involved with some medical procedure. We will continue to dig and delve, and it isn't easy, because people don't like you to find out the real truth. We will ensure nothing is swept under the carpet, and we will make everybody accountable throughout the health service, however difficult. I've got good members on the committee. I've had 2 good vice chairmen over the year, and we will continue to carry on. So thank you to the members, thank you for your comments, and let's keep going and improve the hospital, particularly in Nottingham, and we'll make sure that we hold them to account. So thank you, members.
Councillor Bradley.
I'm lucky. Are you sure, Chairman? Are you sure? Sure. Good.
Sit down.
Get down. Right. Thank you, everybody, for the nature of the debate. I'm not going to talk for very long. I want Philip to have the time at the end to cover all pages individually, make sure that we do the real in-depth scrutiny of this here. I think I just need to echo how grateful we are as an administration. I know Councillor Owen has said it and others, to the amount of time and energy that officers in particular have put into this. I know when we went the other way from Cabinet to committee system, it took kind of 18 months, 2 years to do. This has been done in half of that amount of time, and it is very much because of that work and energy and commitment that the officers that Councillor Owen mentioned have put in. I'm grateful to Councillor Owen also, and to members of his committee for the way that it's been handled. I think the comments that have come across from opposition members about the way that's been managed and the openness that we are certainly trying to instill in all of this as a structure is coming across. So I'm really grateful for that. I think this paper and this change leaves us in the best possible position to access the devolution powers that members opposite have touched on, not least because it gives us the accountability that government requires in terms of structures. And it's worth saying also, regardless of that, that I think it gives us, puts us in the best possible place to have a modern and effective structure of decision making. I think it was Councillor Payne who said, or perhaps Councillor Henschel, times change, things move on, people want to do things in different ways, but we need to adapt to that and make sure that we have a structure as an administration that we're comfortable with in order to deliver those decisions, and a structure that allows the opposition proper access and transparency, which is what we intend to do. I can't touch on all the comments that have been made, but in answer to the broad range of questions that came across, it's worth repeating, I think, that this is an ongoing process. We're not going to write a document that is set in stone and that cannot be changed. This will be open to ongoing review. The working group will continue to sit and look at it. If there are things that emerge in the coming weeks that we realise are massively problematic, we will change them, and we will have a review in 12 months' time to make sure that all of this can get fed back in. So those questions about, what are people's rights and abilities to come and access these meetings, we can address in due course. Nothing's been dismissed, and we will come back to all of those. Worth saying, Kate, I don't think we've been forced into this, and I know government did say accountable structures and set out what they wanted. That's up to us at the end of the day, how we choose to respond to that. Not necessarily the subject for today, but I'm interested in the concern about the prescriptive rules that you talked around in terms of devolution powers and how we use them, because none of that has been negotiated or agreed yet. So legitimate fear, but it's at the minute based on something that hasn't happened and doesn't exist. So I hope that we can, through the scrutiny process, in an open and proper discussion, clarify all of that with you as well. Welcome the comments, Mike, about the way that all of this has been handled and the engagement from opposition groups as well. Aside from the odd interesting speech today, some on this subject and some on wildly different subjects. For the most part, I'm pleased that we're able to sit here and have a debate in a decent atmosphere with a sense of humour and to be able to talk about these things in a sensible way, which hasn't always been the case. And that is certainly the way that we want to go forward through this scrutiny function. I think that the joy, in many ways, of scrutiny, for want of a better word, having sat as a scrutiny member at Ashfield District Council when I was leader of the Conservative group there, is that you can look at the things you want to look at, you can raise the issues as an opposition of the things you're interested in and the things you want to talk in more detail about, rather than having to talk about the things that we as an administration give you on the paperwork to talk about. You have much more say, actually, and much more control about what things you want to dig into. And I trust that that's an opportunity that you will use. I don't think there's too much else to say, Mr. Chairman. So with that, just again, grateful for the nature of this debate. Thank you, Councillor Lee, for your comments. I hope it's reflective of the fact that we are trying to be open with all sides, because I recognise that access to information and understanding the decision-making and what's going on is important for everybody on this side of the chamber as well as the opposition. That's the way we intend to continue to roll out this structure. We welcome the feedback as we go along, and I thoroughly recommend this report to everybody here.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Councillor Owen, you wish to exercise your right to respond?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are one or 2 points as I asked direct questions, particularly from Councillor Henshaw, and I will start with those. His first question was actually about questions from the public at council meetings. It's not something we've considered at this point, I have to say. I know some councils, including the district council that I sit on, do allow questions from the public, although it's very, very rarely used. But if that's something you as a group feel strongly about, then I suggest you feed that through to Councillor Pringle, who I'm sure will be continuing to join us at the working group meetings, which have been put in the diary going forward. You also raised the question about education and other faith groups. Yes, we did look at this in some detail at the time. If you look at the document, and I can't now remember which page it's on, there is a statutory requirement for those 4 representations to be there. So they had to be there. But we said at this point, and again, I think that is actually indicated in the document, at this point, we weren't going to add any others to the list because there are no other faith schools of other faiths other than Christian. But if that should change in the future, in the year 2999, when we're getting towards the end of the life of this constitution, then we will be prepared to look at that and change it. But that was the reason. We did have a fairly detailed discussion on that. And then the third one, disabled persons. Quite honestly, I would have thought that really is for the chairman. I don't know that it actually needs anything writing in, but again, we will look at it if you feel strongly about it. But I wouldn't expect when I'd had my knees done, I wouldn't have expected the chairman to have made me stand up to deliver my comments. But again, we can look at that. So I think those were the direct questions. Councillor Fole thank you for your comments. Yeah, I too probably share some of your reservations, but I would comment in answer to you and indeed to a number of councillors that have spoken. You have to look at what you think is going to deliver the best for your community and for the county as a whole, and not necessarily what your individual preferences or prejudices may be. And I have looked at that and decided that since the government are saying, basically, if you want to get level 3 of devolution, you need to have a cabinet, a leader and cabinet model, then that is something that we have to take on board and look at again. And that's why I have been prepared to do that and come here this morning with the recommendations. You said that the opposition will need support. I think every councillor in this chamber will need some support. And if you look at, again, I don't know which page it is off the top of my head, but there is an indication there of training that will be taking place. There will be training for cabinet members. There will be training for scrutiny chairman and scrutiny members. So there will be an ongoing programme of training which will be delivered by, I think, the Local Government Association are going to provide that. So it's an external provision. So I don't think you need any worry. I don't think you should have any concerns as far as that is concerned. Councillor Payne, Councillor Barnfather's already commented on being informed, keeping all members informed of decisions. Again, it's not something that we've considered other than the decision log at this stage, because that was something we had to get in place. But again, obviously you will feed that through Councillor Pringle, and we can have discussions on that, because I'm always anxious that elected members are kept fully informed. And I think that was one of the serious flaws of the cabinet and scrutiny system that we had last time, that I had to work under when we came to this council. I came onto this council. There were one or two, I think the leader said bizarre speeches or odd speeches, unusual speeches. Well, I tend to take a much more charitable view. Councillor Waters' speech was about the things that could be scrutinised. I thought that was the context. So really was all about this governance matter, although Councillor Wilmot was very critical of us and saying that if all Conservatives are in positions of authority, but Councillor Barnfather's dealt with that. I didn't make the point when I was introducing, but I think it's worth re-emphasising. Opposition members are going to be vice chairman of the select committees and of the overview and scrutiny committee. I think that's a very important and significant step, quite frankly. I don't know of any other authority that there may be some. I don't know of any other authority. But far from Conservatives occupying all of the positions of authority, nothing could be further from the truth. In those positions, you are able to drive the process of scrutiny, and that is particularly important. I thank Councillor Pringle for his comments. I think we have worked well together. We've had our disagreements, and that's how it should be. And you try and come to a consensus. And on some we've given way, on others you've given way, and that's the way we've been able to make progress. And I'm sure that's what we will do going forward. I'll finish with Councillor Hollis's comments. I've offended every Christian in the chamber. Well, I know of at least one that I haven't myself, but when I go to Nuttall Methodist Church on Sunday morning, I will pray for, or I'll ask the congregation to pray for forgiveness for me if I've caused any offence to any good Christian souls. And if we are having meetings in smoke-filled rooms, will you let Councillor Doddy know, because he'll want to do it through, and Councillor Sue Saddington, they'll want to, I thought that was illegal. Now, we don't break the law on this side of the chamber, and I'm sure on the other side they don't as well. So there'll be no smoke-filled rooms. I've already described the rigour that scrutiny can
undertake because of the system that we are trying to put in place. I think we can go forward with confidence with a successful constitution, which we will keep under review, and I hope all members across the chamber will feel able to support it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. We will then therefore move to the vote. Can all those in favour please indicate by showing of hands? That is unanimous by my reckoning. Just to tidy up before we break for lunch, questions to Nottinghamshire and Nottingham and Nottinghamshire City Fire Authority. There are none. So when we return, we'll move straight on to questions to committee chairman.
1 hour. 1 hour.
Yeah.